Capital punishment, also known as the death penalty, is a controversial practice that has been a subject of heated debate for decades. Some people argue that it is an effective deterrent for crime, while others believe that it is a violation of human rights and a morally unacceptable practice. In this video, we will explore the issue of capital punishment in depth, examining its morality, ethics, and practicality. We will analyze the arguments for and against capital punishment and provide you with a thought-provoking analysis that will leave you with a new perspective on this complex issue. Background of capital punishment. Capital punishment has been practiced in many parts of the world throughout history, with the earliest recorded instances dating back to ancient civilizations such as Babylon, Greece, and Rome. In the United States, capital punishment was widely used during the colonial period and remained a common practice until the mid-20th century. However, since the 1970s, the use of capital punishment has declined significantly, with many states abolishing the practice altogether. Arguments for capital punishment. Proponents of capital punishment argue that it serves as a deterrent for crime, preventing potential criminals from committing heinous acts out of fear of the consequences. They also contend that it is a just punishment for those who commit the most serious crimes, such as murder, and that it provides closure for the families of victims. Arguments against capital punishment. Opponents of capital punishment argue that it is inherently immoral and violates the sanctity of life. They also point out that the justice system is not infallible and that innocent people have been executed in the past, a risk that cannot be eliminated entirely. Furthermore, they argue that the use of capital punishment is often influenced by factors such as race, class, and geography, resulting in unfair and unequal treatment. Moral and ethical considerations. The debate over capital punishment often centers around the moral and ethical implications of taking a human life. Supporters argue that it is a just punishment for the most serious crimes, while opponents argue that it is never morally acceptable to intentionally take a life, regardless of the circumstances. Practical considerations. In addition to moral and ethical concerns, there are also practical considerations to take into account when discussing capital punishment. For example, the cost of executing a prisoner is often much higher than that of keeping them in prison for life. There is also a risk of executing an innocent person, as well as the potential for racial and socioeconomic bias in the application of the death penalty. Alternatives to capital punishment. Many opponents of capital punishment propose alternative methods of punishment, such as life imprisonment without parole, which they argue serves as an equally effective deterrent while avoiding the moral and ethical concerns associated with capital punishment. Additionally, advocates of restorative justice argue that a focus on rehabilitation and reintegration into society is a more effective means of reducing crime. Global perspective. The use of capital punishment varies widely across the world, with some countries, such as China and Iran, executing thousands of prisoners each year, while others, such as most of Europe, have abolished the practice entirely. Many international organizations, such as the United Nations, oppose the use of capital punishment and advocate for its abolition worldwide. The issue of capital punishment is a complex and controversial one, with passionate arguments on both sides of the debate. While proponents argue that it serves as a necessary deterrent and a just punishment for the most serious crimes, opponents point to the moral and ethical concerns and practical considerations that make the use of capital punishment problematic. Ultimately, whether or not to end the practice of capital punishment is a decision that must be made by society as a whole, taking into account the many complex factors at play.